All right. Yeah. So, I had just, changed a shirt. It reminded me of this blog article that I wrote right at the top of COVID, where I was like, the title was "Will We Wear Pants?" Right? Because the idea was, if everyone's going to Zoom and we're all, looking at the shirts, like, does it matter? Like, suit manufacturers, are they just going to start selling? Um, you know how you get a trio? Do you know what a trio suit is, where you have like one jacket and two pants? One pair of pants matches the jacket, so therefore it's like a suit, and the other pair of pants turns it kind of like into a sport coat. Um, I was like, I wonder if they're going to reverse that, and you're just going to catch like multiple jackets. Okay, but really the real subject of it wasn't about the suit industry. It was actually about real estate and our willingness to kind of drive to areas and how we're going to kind of change homes for like work at home and commute to stores. And do we even need to be in urban areas anymore, or can we find like a small town outside of an urban area that still has a walkable downtown? That type of stuff. And now we're dealing with a lot of automation. So, are you hearing me? How's my sound here? Oh, hang about. I think. Are you good? Because I'm seeing me, but I'm not hearing you. Say again.
Oh, somehow I got
There we go.
muted. Hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you're good. I
I have
guess.
like all these different things. Like I've set my computer to take the Google Meet and bring it out through Open Broadcast Studio and on out to LinkedIn Live. And so it's like I have these little configurations, and I'm like, oh God, what happened? So all right.
You just wear all the hats. You talk about wearing all the hats, especially in the early stage company. I mean, that's you. Your tech support. You're everything right now.
It is look, you got to do the things that don't scale. You need to. I feel like, and maybe this is a shortcoming. It's like I want to be able to at least understand each piece before I offload each piece.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just getting to this point where I'm like, you know what? Maybe I should start taking off some of these areas, like editing the videos and turning them into those small 30-second clips and scheduling that. I don't know. What are some of the things that you offload? Like, because you as a in the sales role, you're kind of running your own company, you're running your own biz.
Yeah.
And so like, what are things that
they say like we're the CEO of our book of business or our named account list. I think it comes with depending where you are. Like, for example, I'm paired up with a great teammate, my business development representative. And so like we're going through our named account list. Who do we want to start first? Going after what accounts first, and then, who exactly. And me being in the space so long, like I build out an initial list for us to then go, hey, this is kind of our A players who we want to go after. And then Riley, he has permission to go build out other people that you think could be a fit and, see value in what we're doing and how we're helping others. So it's kind of that fine line of, get the ability to kind of go wild, but also making sure we still do have that core of, what can do this. And then also helps me because as I was talking earlier with I still like doing all the grunt work myself as well. And like you were just mentioning, it makes me think of like in and out. Their thing is, no manager has never started at the bottom of the totem pole, which is a fry cook, which is wise because when you go through every step of working in and out, how every process works. Say, something breaks, you're probably not maybe getting under and fixing the fryer, but you at least know all those facets. So again, as you're managing a store or in and out, if a newer employee comes in or they're going from fry cooked, I don't know, say the grill, you can help them because you've done that and you have that experience. And again, that's that skill set to make sure you can properly lead people and be valuable to them and their jobs.
There's a very interesting point that you're bringing up, which is to understand things empathetically, kind of grok, a system. How do you understand it intimately? And this comes with time in industry, or as you just said, playing multiple roles within an industry. It's interesting for me on the customer success side, having been a programmer, though long ago. I at least have walked, maybe not a mile, but I at least understand it, right? And I still, go and code. And of course, now with AI, it's all vibe coding and whatnot. But
Mm-hmm.
frankly, I actually like vibe coding better than when I coded, because instead of having to worry about each semicolon and all the other things, I can kind of talk about like concept and get through it. So I think one of the things I'm going to be interested to hear is, as we talk today, Jeff, is like, how do you create that balance? It's not just how, but it's also when, right? Hey, you're a manager? Great. You probably should have spent some time cooking fries, right? And understanding there. But I want to make sure that we are respecting time. So to get back on the time, let's do this. Let's just do the intros. Me, Ben, you're popping up on the screen. It's always good to see you. And then I'll kick it on over to Jeff, and go and grab that 15 minutes and talk, and then we're going to kind of Q&A. You understand the format. It's one actionable takeaway, 15 minutes to present your expertise, 10 minutes to talk about it, and we're down. So this is the intro that we all go through. As I said, 15-minute presentation, 10-minute discussion, one takeaway. And what I just want to do just with the people here is introduce yourself and what are you looking for. There's a way to very quickly understand who's here and how we can help them. So in my case, it'll be Josh Rosenthal, community manager at A-Round, and I'm looking for leaders at startups to join A-Round. A-Round is focused on leaders that can be a head of engineering, a VP of customer success, a chief revenue officer, and obviously a founder at a company that's received some type of funding, is sufficiently bootstrapped on its way to that A round, or has already raised it. Technology companies, though I think this type of information that we talk about is applicable to pretty much anyone. So that's for me. Mr. Ben, are you able to kick off mute and share yours?
Hey, I'm Ben Abrams. I'm the CEO and founder of Ben Abrams Assets and Holdings, a investment firm in Thailand, currently focused on building internet-connected laundromats. And my background is in cybersecurity and engineering. And I'm looking for just, interesting people who are solving interesting problems. And while we are an investment firm, I'm not currently looking for external investors. I have enough of my own right now. So, but in the future, I will probably be looking for external investors as well.
You make the relationship before, build the community before you need it.
Yeah.
So Jeff, I know you're coming in for a presentation, but I want to invite you to take 2 bites of the apple. So feel free to go and talk about yourself on the first round, and of course, then I'm just going to kick it on over to you for the presentation.
Perfect. No, appreciate it. Yeah, Jeff Liccion. Haven't been a founder, a CRO, but I have been a founding account executive, as in one of the first in the seats when you're really starting from scratch, trying to piecemeal how we get a great product out to the masses. I've been in technology sales, fast approaching 10 years. Majority of that, about 95% spent in the application security space, and have been in sales over 10 years in total. So I've seen a lot of different shifts of kind of, the old school style when I first got into sales, hand jamming, these automated systems, really just a desktop phone, crunching the numbers every time I called someone, to now where we are today. where everyone else stands in any industry with AI, and you know what that is doing for us to help us, and how it can potentially also hurt us at times.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, by the way, maybe I should include founding salesperson, because you and I were talking before this about, well, talking about how the salesperson kind of runs their own business, that book of business, as you had just said a moment ago. And so I think being that first person on the ground it should count, just because there's so little that you have to go on, that you have to have that creativity and you have to have that ability to organize that chaos. So, all right, we've now changed a round. It includes the founding salesperson. All right, and come on, do you want to go and introduce yourself? Are you able to get on camera and open mic? I know I'm putting you on the spot. All right, there we go.
How's everybody?
Yeah, doing okay.
Yeah, I'm the founder of a talent management platform. This is basically a community of businesses which enables organizations to collaborate for human talent.
Fantastic.
Right, and we are implementing AI big time in terms of the agents and the nature of agents that we have got. Some of them I haven't seen yet, so I'm still trying to make head or tail of how we're actually going to implement those.
Sure. And what are you looking for?
I just need to understand as much as I can about where artificial intelligence can be implemented and how far it can be implemented, especially from a leadership perspective, because I think one area where we are not looking at artificial intelligence is supporting. We've got a number of agents which talk about, you can do your pre-sales, you can do your sales and other activities, but there's nothing from an enterprise standpoint which can pick up different pieces from the organizations and create a response.
Mm.
Right? That's
So,
one.
I want everyone to know this is not a plant. This is a legitimate question. It's not I did not seed this to go and transition directly to Jeff. So, Jeff, take it away on that one. What a great question.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes. Yeah. So I'll say first, I'll get through my presentation. I think I will touch on that question some, but at the end, when taking questions, if you want me to shed more light on anything, or I didn't specifically, share my thoughts on your question there, feel free to bring that back up and we can definitely talk more to that.
Cool.
Perfect. So yes, great way to transition there. I know I introduced myself, but I really am excited to talk about how important it is for us to humanize sales in the age of AI, as in any other facet where AI is being used today, which is essentially everywhere. So to start us off, I want to take a step back before we come to where we are today, and that's looking at the days of the traveling salesman. When I think of that, you think of, someone in their car driving all over, multiple states, all over the country, where they're planned out stops, what hotels, motels they're staying at, and what they're going to be delivering. Specifically for me, it's remembering, when I was growing up, seeing the Schwann's food delivery truck coming around the neighborhood, weekly or bi-weekly. What this made me think of when it comes to what I want to talk about today is what stood out from Schwann's compared to others. And for me, it was that you always had that same friendly face every time the truck came through the neighborhood. They quickly built relationships with everyone on their stops, and even those that lived around them, because you would always see that, neighbors were talking. What did you get from them this week? Do you want to try something? But what really stood out is how that driver, though, even though they're delivering, handing out the catalogs, they really understood their customers on their routes. They didn't just become, hey, I'm dropping you off your order. They really became friends and really got to know each of their customers. And so they were humanizing it. They would then go and, often I'd hear sharing, hey, someone around the block just tried these items. You might like them as well. I know you've had some similar stuff. So they really became not just a friend and had a strong relationship, but what we strive to do in sales is become a trusted advisor. We don't want to just be that pesky salesperson always trying to push someone to look at our product or to buy our product. We want them to really trust us and that we're trying to add value to them. And that's what I saw in Schwann's when I was growing up. And then now we look from the start of the pandemic, when everyone went remote first, to the rise of AI tooling today. I find it ever more important that we remember that people buy from people who can add value to them and solve problems that they're facing. Relationship selling will always win over pushy feature selling, and value selling absolutely always wins over feature function selling. What we need to make sure we're doing is when we can find the problems that we can solve, we come across in a way that we show we can support them and that they can trust us in what we're doing to help their cause. So to dive into where I see AI today, I want to focus on 3 areas, those being understanding AI in sales, successfully implementing AI in sales, and the misuse of AI in sales, which I see as being the starting blocks to humanizing sales in the age of AI. So first, we'll start with understanding AI in sales. What can it do? As in any other facet, AI today can essentially do any part of the sales role that we may want or need it to do. But how do we know where and when to use it? For me, what I look at is having an understanding of where my strengths and my weaknesses are today. From there, going and looking at, for my weaknesses, how can I potentially leverage AI to up-level my game in that area? So for me personally, aside from liking to still do a lot of my own research, a lot of my own prospecting, and really making sure that I'm standing out from the crowd, humanizing my efforts that align with a potential prospect or my customers, is I still often find myself combing through 10Ks of public companies that I may have as an account on my list. With ChatGPT and the other AI systems today, though, you can quickly, with a well-written prompt, have it comb through a company's 10K and get a lot, if not all, of your questions answered. Now, again, this goes back to maybe having to iterate and rework the prompts that you are putting in. When you do hone that down, I suggest that you copy that, store that away a little bit, because that's going to help you for that future use. The information that we can use from that and from combing other areas like a LinkedIn profile is really what helps us understanding the value that we can deliver to that customer potentially, or that specific person in that company. For this, A round, where we're looking at early stage companies, one of the biggest thing I feel that a company always tries to do is find their ICP, or ideal customer profile, and it being one of the top priorities alongside the product market fit for them. I think AI can also be used for this to help quickly understand, based on the product you have, what you do, the problem that you're solving, and more importantly, the value that early customers or design partners have recognized and share with you, to really hone in again that ideal customer profile, to then know where you should focus your time and efforts in continuing to grow the business. Advantages, absolutely being the time saved. Going back to how I like to keep my skills fresh and mainly do a lot of tasks. For example, just combing through even 10 public companies, 10Ks, can take a lot of time. When if I have a well-written prompt, it can quickly do that for me and get the data that I'm looking for, that then I can use that extra time to go do other research that maybe I don't have set up for AI to do yet, to set myself up for strong outreach and positioning with potential customers. As long as the information is there, I've seen it's pretty accurate, tied to having a correct prompt, which also has led me to not overthink as much as I used to overthink before using AI in the ways that I do today. The disadvantages that I see, the biggest personally that I see is becoming too reliant on AI for as many of our tasks in a day that we want. Personally, I think if we stop working the core skills that we spent years building up, just in recently over the past couple years, and not keeping them sharp, we will be at a disadvantage to those in our similar spaces. For example, what if one day, we go into Chat GPT, all systems have gone awry, it's not working. If you haven't kept those skills sharp, well, someone else, maybe a competitor in an adjacent space has, you're now at a disadvantage because you're having to resharpen those skills and be able to put your best foot forward. For me personally, I love cold calling as part of my prospecting. It's something that I've seen from as early on in my days in sales to even now, where I feel like as some get further along in their career, they become maybe a little more reliant on their teammates like sales development representatives, business development representatives, and they kind of lose that skill set. That's one thing I never want to lose, because again, when you say have a newcomer coming into your company, if they're tied to you as a teammate, if you don't have that skill as sharp as it once was, how quickly can they ramp and you as a team start being successful and performing as early as possible? Now to successfully implementing AI in sales. I see it as having a massive value add when used properly. Some of the ways I see it being beneficial is by first looking again at where your weaknesses are, being honest with yourself, and then going and exploring how can AI potentially help me with this, and will it help me in a way that externally is adding value as well, not just internally to myself, but from an outward looking view as well. Some of the ways I use it today is the mundane tasks, calendaring, setting up reminders, helping with follow-ups, those tasks that sometimes can take a lot more time than you set aside 10 minutes for. But if you do use AI to help you with it, it can be done quickly, and then you can get back to those tasks that may be viewed as, higher value, higher priority. Another good way is, we're all humans, we all make mistakes, is proofing emails, making sure you're hitting points from a conversation or again from your personal research or any AI research. The biggest thing I'll say with this is making sure that you don't just go copy and paste something that, say, Chat GPT spits out to you in a response. I feel that comes off robotic. Again, people buy from people. We need to make sure that we're humanizing sales. We don't want to come off robotic. Everything doesn't have to be perfect. So make sure you're taking what you get, but still making it yours at the end of the day. Maybe it's a nitpicky thing for me, but I just don't like that idea, because say you copy and paste directly from Chat GPT, you have a little bit of an email thread going with a customer or prospect, and then you don't use AI a couple times. And then you look back and even you yourself can say, wow, these are not the same. They're not written the same. They don't read the same. Well, that's because they aren't. Some of them you used AI for, the rest you wrote yourself manually, and you're humanizing it, whether it's, tying something in from a LinkedIn post they had, an article you read, and maybe AI that whole time in those other responses wasn't doing that. A principle I've always lived on, most people or majority of people I've worked with have probably heard me say this before, but the KISS principle. What's the KISS principle? Keep it simple, stupid. So going back to, hitting points for proofing emails, but making sure that you're concise and to the point without adding fluff. Again, yes, as humans, we will run on sentences. We will have grammatical errors, but still trying to make sure that we're concise, especially if at an early stage company, you are trying to stand out to those leaders, whether VPs or C-levels. Their inboxes, any type of outreach to them, that system is overloaded. How can you stand out? It's getting right to the point, adding value, and not writing too much or adding too much fluff. Because the majority of the time these days, those leaders, they're reading that quick preview on their phone. So making sure that we can get to them in a way that we know we can, and making sure we're hitting the points in a concise manner. Lastly, a big one, I know even just maybe, 5-6 years ago, people would always tell me to remove call recording systems. Now I think people, especially after the pandemic, are okay with having them in on calls. I think they're a huge value add to anyone on both sides. One, internally, I say it first on all the calls when I say, hey, this is our recording system. I can remove it if you want. One thing is it helps us with training. And secondly, it helps us if, say, I have to go back and get a question answered from our engineering team. I know exactly what you're asking for and the exact context that it's in. Me being in sales, I probably don't know a lot of these terms, so I want to make sure I have that accurately. When you position like that, a lot of people that still might be hesitant today, they're open to that. Because again, when they have these questions, it's showing that they really do have interest in what you're offering and discussing, but they need that correct answer. And I position it as, I want to make sure I can give you an answer that you can write in stone. I don't want to tell you something that, when we do get on another call with my technical teammate, is completely inaccurate, and then I look like I was trying to lie to you. So another way that, the call recordings also help, I found, is when you have them in the new AI transcripts. They're great for summarizing, what were the talking points, who had questions, what are the next steps. In a sales process, we always want to make sure that at the end of a call, we're scheduling those next steps, whether it's, hey, you'll hear from me middle of next week. Okay, perfect. If I don't, are you okay if I email you on Thursday? Yes, that's great, just to make sure we're staying up. Or, hey, now we're going to move forward and start planning evaluation. All those little things that before we had to listen to a whole transcript or try to Command F and find the exact point of it. It helps with those areas. And this isn't saying, though, that you won't have to go back and listen to snippets of the recording or even potentially the whole thing. But I think AI in the recording systems these days is a huge value add for us in recapping calls or knowing what we have to do next. Now, one that I focus a lot on, I'll say, in my day-to-day and the way I view AI is the misuse of it. To me, there's a fine line for proper use of it and misusing it. Far too often, I see individuals and companies using it too frequently. For example, that amazing question at the beginning, when you're an early stage company, an AI SDR or a sales rep may seem like the best way to reach the masses, but is it? The reason I ask that is because, do we want to be reaching the masses, or do we want to be reaching the right people? And we know they're the right people because we've done research. We know we can add value to a problem or a pain point that they're facing, instead of just, spraying and praying and hoping that our messaging sticks somewhere. With AI, everything seems perfect. But again, as I alluded to earlier, we as humans and individuals are not perfect. Misspellings, run-on sentences show that we are real. For me, I embrace them. I'm one that I don't edit every line of an email. A lot of times, honestly, it's on purpose. I will see that I wrote something incorrectly, but I don't mind because, again, at the end of the day, I'm a human. We're all human. We all make mistakes. And I feel with AI these days, if we do go correct and craft that perfect email, make sure everything grammatically is correct, it's teetering on, is this actually really Jeff, or is this AI writing this? So that's the thing that I think is, one of the big areas is, adding to the problem of making sure that we stand out in our humanizing sales. Because even before this, again, these leaders and people that we do want to get to in a sales motion, they were already inundated, whether with voicemails, emails, LinkedIn messages. And AI, to me, has just, multiplied that tenfold. So how do we really stand out? And that's by humanizing sales. And now I admit that I may be naive, as I haven't followed a lot of the AI sales systems as closely recently. And maybe some of them do personalize emails. Maybe, I've never personally used an AI SDR or worked somewhere that has, but maybe they do, do that research. The messaging is kind of off of some research. But to me, that is something that I like to keep to myself. As again, you can easily pivot. Say you do get someone on a call, you can, really show that you're human. You can empathize with them. And a lot of things I just don't know personally if AI is at that point yet. But again, I could be completely wrong on that. So if I am open to hearing that. Please let me know. Another area I think is underusing AI. thinking that there's no value add in AI will leave you behind from those similar in your space or adjacent space. For all the unknowns and ways to misuse AI, there's a place for all of us to gain value leveraging it when we find that way that it adds the value to us and the value externally that we do want to see from it. I'm not saying dive headfirst in, but where I would do and what I do personally is I look at where are my weaknesses today in my processes and my approach, and can AI help me with this? And not overdo it, but test it out first. Make sure it is something that you personally like and see that value from at the end of the day. And I know I touched on it a little bit before, but big one again is just using AI for perfection. We're humans at the end of the day. Don't forget that people buy from people. They build relationships with people, and especially in sales role, we want to move from being that pesky salesperson to a trusted advisor. For example, I tell everyone I work with that when you have a customer or prospect finally tell you one day that, hey, Jeff, you know what, just call me or text me on my cell phone. It's just easier. My inbox is flooded, my LinkedIn's flooded. It'll just be easier for us to stay in contact with each other. That's when you've moved into that trusted advisor role. They don't mind you texting them. They don't mind you personally calling their cell phone, even though in sales outreach and prospecting, they're getting calls on their cell phone every day. They're going to save your number, and you're in that position where they really trust you, and you're seen as an asset to them. And then just to look back on the quote there from Steve Gregary's notes on his Building a Community Wilson Stealth micro seminar, he was talking about over polishing and how consistency beats perfection when posting on LinkedIn. I think the same stands true when creating relationships, adding value to customers and prospects while leveraging AI. And I think, the way I spin what Steve said was, again, what I've mentioned several times now is we are humans. We are not perfect. Embrace it. No one out there is perfect. And that's what makes this world so beautiful. And, AI is here to add value, but we don't need everything to be perfect for any of us to be successful.
I'm loving it. And while you're going, there were several people that had messaged with, or at least raised hands with questions. So, Karan, if you want to kick this off, I think you were the first. Oh, no, I think you're on mute. Or okay.
Sorry, I was on mute.
Yeah, there we go. Well, turn on the camera and away you go.
The first thing that I wanted to kind of point out more than a question is we've always been talking about AI from an external perspective, right? All of the agents, everything that we talk about, we work more from a outward facing standpoint, but there are a lot of sales activities which can be done internally within the organization. What is the reason that nobody's working in that area?
Well, can you shed some light on that? What do you mean from like an internal standpoint that you think AI isn't being used yet?
So there are two sides to it. One is the startup side and the other is the enterprise side.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll take a look at both. From a startup standpoint, yeah, you're focused on getting your lists ready, your mailers ready. You're running your campaigns. You're running all of that work. But even as a startup, there are opportunities where responding to certain requests because you're addressing a certain problem, which is out there. So you've got to prepare a response, a detailed response, which is not just an email, but you have to write a proposal. Now, we don't have agents that support writing a proposal. A proposal writing can be quite an extensive exercise.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So that's one area. The other area is the agents that can support you, advise you on pivots. Because I think as startups, people really struggle to understand where they should be pivoting and how, despite all of the information that you have. At times, that's an information overload.
Mhm. Yeah, so I think, internally, I think depending on what you're talking about, like, so for example, like in the customer success realm, there are AI systems that do help you today with responding to customer feedback or support tickets and that. Then when it comes to proposals, are you talking about like a proposal, like an RFP, when a
Yep.
company asks you for an RFP? Yeah, I have not come across one that does that myself. And personally, that's one thing I like still doing manually. Yes, they take time. One thing you can do is have some sort of a template built out that you can, you've seen some similarities across, a number of proposals to where you assume, all right, this is likely going to be in any future proposals. You have a template that you can work off of that saves you some of that time from starting from scratch each time you get that request, and then you just tweak it as needed. It will still save you time, but again, it's probably just me how I like to still be hands-on so much. But I like doing that portion. And then again, depending on how large your team is, Josh and I, earlier this morning we were talking about when is the right time to start delegating out some task. So I think it's also thinking of, is this something that now I need to delegate to someone else, or, bring on a consultant, or, hire someone for. I think it's like finding that right time of, is it time to grow, add someone to do this for me to take it off of my plate? But initially I would say starting with some sort of template that can at least cut the time by at least half will be a huge time save for you.
Hey, Mr. John. Oh, are you? I think you might be on mute here. There we go. Nope. Hold on.
Jeff,
There we
really,
go.
simple but straightforward presentation. Thanks a lot for that. Let me see if I could. So I'm getting inundated with AI messaging, right? Emails and messaging, and I'm going to start using copy leaks or Zero GPT, right? To say
Yeah.
who actually did somebody write this or not? But going forward, I mean, how do you so the initial stage of utilizing AI for sales, maybe in business development, where does that actually lead to? Because I think we're getting to a point where we're already seeing, LinkedIn, all of these applications are being reviewed by AI. So what happens? The applicants use AI, then use AI. And so how does it? How do you, if you had in your crystal ball? How do you see AI being utilized optimally for the sales process?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And just to add, it's funny. My company where I'm at, Socket, we actually just had a blog post, I think a month or two ago now. We have an internal head of talent, and I think over, I don't even know, maybe 80 applicants for a couple openings. I think like 80% we found were AI. So it's even not, again, like you mentioned, but it's not even like the human applicant used AI to write the resume. It was AI applying to it. So it's something that you definitely, and us being a security company, you definitely need to be wary of. And that's where I think, again, it comes down to humanizing sales, as I mentioned, as the title is, but really showing, one, how you align to a company. So, for example, using AI to find those points that you maybe want to uncover in a 10K if it's a public company.
Oh, yeah.
Or any press release, maybe a funding round, they're going to add some bullets on that. But then I still write everything myself. Again, maybe it's just me. I started off, hand jamming back in the day on the desk phone, and I just don't like doing that. Even still today, like I call out on my cell phone if I'm calling people. I don't use any of these systems that they have, like Outreach, Sales Loft, or those. But I think it's really making sure we're not adding fluff, and we're really hitting on the value. Value selling is, I think, what puts us forward. A lot of my teammates, I tell them, you'll get a cold call and, hey, John, it's Jeff Liccion with Socket, where I work now. That automatically sounds the bells and whistles. This is a cold call, blah, blah, blah. Now, if I said, hey, John, I'm reaching out because we're helping companies like ABC overcome challenges around CDE. I thought you might find it interesting. is I can see your company might be in a similar spot, and if you're not already facing them, might be facing those same challenges in the near future. Like, that's an approach I take, and again, that's adding that value. How do we stand out? What do we care about? John cares about the problems that he's thinking about throughout the night and how he can overcome them. If I come, hey, John, I'm reaching out because we're the hottest new application security company. You know, our tool does something no one else does, what everyone else says. Or, hey, we have this buzzword that then in a month, every other company in our space is going to start saying they do as well. That doesn't say anything. You have a problem that you need solved. What is the value that my company can provide to help you overcome that problem?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, fantastic. All right. It feels good, you know, when we have this type of energy. I know that we're for sure over time, but if there's any more questions, want to make sure. I'm also looking at the LinkedIn Live. If there's anyone over there, if you have any questions, post it now. Or
I mean, this is not so much of a question, but I just wanted to give a little bit of feedback as kind of the engineering lead in the room, if you will. You know, probably significantly outnumbered by the sales folks here. And, you know, to kind of ensure that there's
space for
not really
everybody.
an echo chamber, right? Making sure that, again, as one of these types of people who is constantly being outreached to for all of these things, to me, again, I think the presentation was generally spot on. It's all about the human aspect. I've built relationships with people like Josh and other people in different organizations, regardless of whether they're in commercial or sales or customer success, whatever. And we very much risk dehumanizing things, especially with all of the automation. And again, I spend my life as an engineer automating things, and so it's really easy for me to tune out everything that all of the salespeople are doing if you're not actually sounding like a human. I don't want to talk to Jeff Bot. I want to talk to Jeff. And it's just spot on being able to say that, like, hey, here is a genuine problem that you are facing, and this is what it is, right? Instead of starting off with your acronym soup, basically kind of, hey, we developed this new magic thing that, again, everyone else is going to do. And, we're the number one this. I think all of that has just lost its real value, right? Because everyone is always the number one in whatever it is they're trying to sell. And so instead of just, saying, hey, it sounds like you're in this space. I've done a little bit of research. You're a company of this size. You might be having these challenges. Let's just have a call, like talk to me a little bit about what are you facing instead of trying to, front load everything and, try to sell you on everything that you don't need, right? Just sit down and be like, hey, this is what we kind of do. How can I help you? Right. And maybe sometimes the solution is not with your own company. Sometimes you need to go and say, hey, you know what? I know this person at another company that does exactly what you're looking for. And by doing that, you're going to create, like you said, that trusted relationship where, I'm going to come to you next time when I have a problem. And I know even if it may not be something that your company does, right, you're going to help me find that solution. And, it comes around, right? Chances are I'm going to be going to another company at some time in the future, and I'm going to hit you back up and I'm going to be like, hey, you know what? I have that exact problem that you were trying to solve. Didn't have it at my previous organization because of scale, because of what stage it was in, industry, whatever, right? But really just trying to build those relationships with people, that is what's going to always win. So that's just kind of my 2 cents on that. I think maybe to step a little bit away from the salesy part, I think one other thing that I just kind of like to highlight, if you will, is that, again, it's all about the customer experience. And one of the biggest risks that I see with AI here is that, we need to make sure that AI is actually improving the customer experience, improving the internal users experience. I'll just give it, an anecdotal example of the opposite, right? So I travel quite a bit here in Southeast Asia, and I'm not going to name any particular airline, but there was an airline that basically decided, their internal support team, they want to replace them all with AI, right? And so they went and developed this AI chatbot, which was kind of useless and couldn't really solve my problems. And it was so bad to the point where I literally went to the airport, went up to the airport staff at the airline. I'm like, here is my problem. And they're like, I used to be able to solve this for you, but they took away my capability to solve it. You have to talk to the AI chatbot. And I'm like, okay, let me show you. The AI chatbot it cannot do what I'm asking it to do. And so it's really important that we keep that sort of back door, if you will, to always ensure that we can support our customers' needs wherever they are, right? And know that, AI is not a magic wand that will magically solve every single problem, right? Make sure that it's there to enrich the customer, it's there to enrich the company, right? And yes, I know as, founders and CEOs and whatever, right? We want to try to optimize our company, and that also includes headcount and whatnot. But instead of thinking about it in terms of I want to remove headcount, I think it's really important to think about how can I make my internal people that much better, right? It's not about replacing people, it's about augmenting and leveling everyone up. And if you do that, I think that you will very much stand out across all of these other companies out there that are shoving the words AI into literally everything they possibly can. And the second I see AI something, I generally just start tuning it out now, right? I use AI myself. I run local models. I use ChatGPT. But, again, if you overuse something too much, you remove the human aspect of it. And our human brains are actually really good at filtering that kind of stuff out. So sorry I rambled for a little bit, but
No, I love that, Ben. Thanks for adding on that. One thing, made me think, I mean, they're everywhere, but like the scene in the movie Elf, where he gets to New York City and it's the world's best cup of coffee. It's like,
Yeah.
that's what everyone does. That. Hey, I have the best, LLM security product out there. So doesn't the next 5 booths that reinvent next to you or whatever.
Yeah.
No, and I mean, I can speak to that too. I've had those scenarios where get on with someone, I can't solve them, but hey, you should look at blah, 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 and let me check with my internal team, and I'll give you some other companies look at. Done that. They love that. Or, then, hey, they reach back out. Ben reaches out to me. Hey, I know I can do this, but I think, John might be interested. Or again, when you do become that trusted advisor and then Ben moves, because again, I always say it's like for how large the tech space is, it is such a small community. Everyone knows everyone. Everyone's connected. So again, still, say Ben doesn't buy from me, but he had a bad experience because, again, maybe it was too much AI, maybe just, I was pushy and not humanizing sales. And I'm starting to work with John. John is with Ben one time catching up. Hey, have you ever heard of Jeff Liccion spoke with him and his company? Oh, yeah, it's bad experience. So again, that's where it's making sure you're building those relationships. That's what really drives everything, is those relationships at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
So you could condense all of this, the advantage that a human has over AI. Would it be genuine relationship building? Would that be one of the top things?
I think that's the biggest thing. Relationship building and value
And
selling.
Claude would agree with you, because I just asked Claude while we were doing this, and that's the number one. Yes.
Love it. Everybody, thank you all for being here. Thank you for this this next episode of A Round. Jeff, thank you for leading this discussion. Thank you for spending an additional period of time with us afterwards. And for everybody that showed up, thank you. So,
Good, Josh.
Thank you, everyone.
all right, take care.
Bye.